Hey guys, there's been so much going on the last couple of weeks, and I have so many updates to give you, but Wednesday meetings are always full, and I knew that if I tried to put all this in writing, most of you wouldn't read it because who has time for that? So I'm trying this video thing, and super uncomfortable with it. Hate looking at myself on camera, but I've been Zoom interviewing all week, so I'm kind of getting used to it. The only thing I live in fear of is that, if I start to buffer or get frozen, I tend to talk with my hands and my eyes and my nose and everything else. So if I get stuck, please do not take a picture and use it against me because that is my fear. Anyway, so much is happening in terms of the building and the land, not the building, the land, and things like that. So I'm just gonna try to start from the beginning and try to be as organized as possible, but I certainly welcome any questions. And then, of course, I have a little favor to ask. So there is a job involved, so pay attention to the end. Okay, thanks. Okay, so Monday, April 8th, we are set to close on all the buildings behind us. So as of Monday, we will have an extra acre, just slightly under an acre for our campus. So it's happening. It's going through. Going to pick up a cashier's check Monday morning and it'll be done. So very exciting. So that's one thing that's happening. We have decided after, I haven't walked through the buildings, but Bob Walker and Joe Shada, who are trustees, walked through the buildings this week, and we had considered saving one or two of the buildings to use for, anything we need it for, administrative space, storage, blah, blah, blah. But after walking through them, they pretty adamantly decided that they were not worth saving, that they're really in rough shape, and they would rather, if we're going to do something temporary, do a temporary building instead. So I'm kind of happy that that was a very decisive opinion, so I'm happy with that, which means they're going to come down sooner rather than later. When we've torn down buildings before, we offered up, people to come look at, window units and appliances and all of that kind of stuff. We are probably not going to do that this time, in great part because their opinion was that even the appliances were crap, and people probably won't want them. So they are not even interested in selling for us as an institution to make any money. So I am letting that go, especially with Tamara being out. So anyway, we probably will not be doing any kind of auction or anything like that because they're in such bad shape. We are going to be fencing the property as soon as possible. So, and obviously that is for security reasons. We don't want any homeless friends moving in, and so that's going to be happening relatively quickly. It really won't affect how we are running and operating right now, but that is going to happen, and we will also have cameras back there sooner rather than later. Demo will begin as soon as possible, but there is some asbestos, which that abatement has to happen first. So I think that will probably start within the month. And then demo will probably happen in the first couple of weeks of summer. I don't think it'll happen sooner than that, but I will keep you posted. Okay, so that's the property everybody knows about. So in other news, we've been having conversations with lots of other neighbors as well. And there's a neighbor, so if you think about the apartments behind us, one of the neighbors across the street, there are 3 houses across the street that are still single family homes. The one closest to the high rise, we have talked with Miss Barbier, and we have a letter of intent to potentially purchase her property if certain contingencies work out. And so we have that property currently tied up while we consider the potential uses for that property. My computer just closed. Anyway, so that is super exciting and certainly something we did not have on the radar before. So that's happening. One of the things that could make that property really useful is if we were able to close the street, so close that part of Portland, and so it would make us have all of our current property plus all the apartments behind us plus the street plus that property. But of course her property by itself is not all that useful because it's relatively small. So anyway, we're tying it up so that we can go through due diligence to see if it is worth having. So that is happening. And then we've also continued to talk to our other neighbors, namely Mr. Adkins and Mrs. Hawkins. So Mrs. Hawkins is the one with the swimming pool right behind us, and Mr. Adkins is the one with the large property and the lemon trees outside of Lori Costley's window. Historically, the two of them have been adamantly opposed to selling any time in the foreseeable future. And their attitude has been, I've lived here forever. I don't want to go anywhere. I don't have any place to go. You know, I'm happy to sell when I'm ready, but I'm not close to being ready. Well, since we have purchased the big property with the apartments, they've gotten a tiny bit nervous about it. Maybe the Joy School won't want our properties anymore. And so that kind of works to our advantage. And so we have, Lisa Stone has talked to each of them recently, and they have expressed an interest in, at a minimum, giving us a right of first refusal. So getting something in writing that says if something happens to them, we are very interested in the property and we should get first dibs kind of thing. So that's huge progress. Considering where we were a couple of years ago with, you know, making offers and them not even responding or being willing to talk about it. So that is super exciting. I really need to log into my computer to remember everything else I'm going to tell you. So give me a second. But the big question, of course, is why do we need all this property and what the heck are we going to do with it, right? So, as you may remember, we have been interviewing architects. And as of last week, we have chosen the team of Jackson and Ryan. And they have a lot of independent school experience, which was a huge plus for us. But more importantly than anything else, when we interviewed them, they spoke our language. They talked about the importance of culture. They talked about the importance of everybody having a say and this being a very inclusive process. They just got us. And so that's how we made the decision. And that decision was made a week ago Monday. And we have already met with them 3 times because the timing of all of this is really crucial, because once we close on the property behind us, our loan starts. And we have been incredibly fortunate to have a very, very, very friendly loan. So friendly as in 0% finance, 0% interest for the first 2 years, which is incredible. But after that, we have to start paying interest. And it's very hard in the development world to raise money for debt. So we've got to get that loan paid off as soon as possible. And we have to pay that loan off before we can build anything. So now that we're closing, we have to start raising money. You can't raise money if you don't know what you're raising it for. Quite frankly, telling people that we are trying to raise money for an acre of very old apartments that we're going to tear down and we don't know what we're going to do with it yet is not the easiest sell. So that's where all this master planning comes in. The reality is we probably are only going to be able to raise about between $9 and $10 million in a first phase of fundraising. 6.5 of that is going to the loan. So we only have a couple of million to play with, which I don't know when a couple of $1 million became a small amount of money for me, but that's kind of crazy. But it is. So let me find my notes to stay focused now that I'm logged in again. Okay, so the master planning process, okay? A couple of years ago in 2016, when we were still working with Gulas, if you were here in 2016, everybody had the opportunity to participate in these focus groups where Gulas kind of asked you questions and really walked you through the process of, okay, what is working in this current building? What is not working? And what are our most urgent needs? Okay. Well, when we did that, we had no prospects of extra property. We were really going through that exercise to figure out, to quantify, okay, how much space are we talking? And so when we knew how much space we were talking, then we could say, okay, is this little bitty lot worth it? Or do we need this big lot? And who do we go talk to? And who do we really build relationships with to make this happen? Well, now we have significantly more options in terms of property. And so now we no longer have to limit ourselves to what do we absolutely need at a minimum to make the school function as is. So now it's time to dream big. And the concept of dream big, we think, is the perfect name for the imminent capital campaign that is coming. So if you haven't heard that yet, our new capital campaign, when we kick it off, is going to be called Dream Big, because that's what this whole thing is about. So here's where I need your help. We still have all the notes from the exercises we did in 2016 with Gulas. We have shared that with the new architect team, Jackson and Ryan, and they have created a new survey for you. I'm attaching it to this email, so that's what the attachment is. But what this survey does for you right now is it reminds you of everything that we talked about back then. And what they need for us to do right now is clarify if is what we said true, or is what we said in 2016 still true? Are those still our most pressing needs? And some things are going to be a yes. And then also to think, okay, how has your teaching changed since 2016? What about things that we can't do now but we want to do in terms of pedagogy or class sizes or curriculum ideas, and what kind of spaces are we going to need to do those things? So we want to think beyond the here and now. And think about, okay, the urgent needs for the immediate future, which to me, building wise and fundraising wise, is, in the next 2 to 3 years, what's most important. And then let's think about the next 5 years and 10 years and 15 years. What do we want to plan for long term, the best possible version of the Joy School? What does that look like from your perspective? And then when we get all that on paper and we put numbers to it, then we're going to go back and come up with phases. And so it might be that the first phase, we're going to work on raising $10 million, and we got to pay for the land, and we're going to put a multi-purpose room, some kind of multi-purpose room. And then we might say the second phase is going to be, we're going to add a parking garage. And the third phase is going to be, we're going to double in size. And I know when I say the words double in size, at least 50% of you freak out. But I want you to think about that. What could we do with a larger population of kids, particularly in middle school? What would happen? What would the positives be of having a larger student body in middle school? Not go from 55 now to 150 in a year, but if we did it over time, and I've already done some planning that if we added, say, 25 kids a year over the course of 6 years, so that we slowly grew and added all the people and all the positions and all the spaces that we needed to make that possible. What are those spaces? What are those considerations? And so this is a big idea. And some of you are only going to be able to think about the here and now, and that is fine. We need those current people to do that. And some of you are going to be able to think about things that I have never even considered. And so we need your input as well. So the first step is this survey. You can print it out and handwrite it. You can type on it. I'm going to send you the editable version so you can type into it. You can completely ignore that form and just write everything out in an email. However you want to do it, it's your input that counts. However you want to get it to me, great. But I need it by Monday. That's the kicker. The reason we need it by Monday is because in addition to giving everybody an opportunity to put their thoughts on paper, We also want to have focus groups again for the people who are going to think better in a group and who are going to be interested in feeding off each other's ideas and hearing other people's ideas. So we want to make sure that we get the quiet people who are going to think best by themselves and have time to write it out. And we want to make sure that we get the group think people who are going to think best with other people. So we're trying to do both of those. And Jackson and Ryan really want to have the written feedback before we run those focus groups so that they can really tailor the conversation to more clarifying kinds of discussions. So if people say we need small spaces, getting down to the nitty-gritty, what are those small spaces for? Or what are those large spaces for? What are you going to do in them? So that they can use their expertise to provide us those things as quickly as possible and as inexpensively as possible so we can actually get it all done. All right, so I'm going to check my notes to make sure I've covered everything. One more thing. So this is crazy and amazing. Obviously we have been working behind the scenes in thinking about, okay, we're going to need this capital campaign. Who's going to help lead it? What is it going to look like? What's going to be the dollar amount? And so we've been working on all those things. And obviously we have not kicked it off. We haven't even defined it. But we have already received 2 gifts dedicated to the capital campaign. One from a current family and another from Mary Watt's family. And their gift is $500,000 to kick off this campaign. So even without trying, we are off and running, and this is going to be reality, y'all. I don't know how long it's going to take, but this is legacy leaving stuff is how I like to think about it. Like what we do and plan for in the next couple of years, many of us are going to move on to different places, but it's going to be us working together to define that and dream for it and, prioritize things that's going to set it in place for not only, maybe not even our current kids, but the future kids and maybe some of these kids down the road. So I am super excited about it. I know April is crazy. Believe me, I know April is crazy. But on a positive note, last week I found out that the board is not going to ask you guys to do a head of school survey, nor are they going to ask you to write a, unstructured letter to me. They are going to give you a chance to give optional feedback if you have it, but otherwise they're going to take that burden off of you this year. So consider it a trade. And this is way more fun than, trying to give feedback about what I do when half the time I'm stuck in my office and nobody knows what I'm doing. But this is what I'm doing. This is all the exciting stuff that I am doing. So anyway, please fill out the survey if you're going to fill it out. You don't have to, but the more info they have, this is one of the reasons I chose Jackson and Ryan, is that they are completely okay and actually welcome input from everyone. They are not saying, hey, we've got 5 hours of time to allot to this. You squeeze everybody in, but it's going to cost you more money if you're going to go over 5 hours. They want everybody's input. So here's your chance to put it in writing. I'm working with Rachel to get the focus groups scheduled, and so we'll send you more information on that. But it's time to dream big, y'all. So I hope you can find some time either tomorrow or this weekend or even tonight to get it filled out. So I'm so excited. Let me know if you have any questions. Thanks. Bye.